Old man, now we'll be in charge of your savings and pension, my son-in-law said triumphantly, and I just smiled as if I agreed. He and my daughter rushed to celebrate their victory, confident of my submission. But when they returned at midnight, they saw something that made them scream. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I pulled into the driveway at 2:30, still thinking about the cabinet joints Marcus had demonstrated at the Builders Club meeting. The Thursday afternoon sun hit my windshield, at that angle that makes you squint. Brian's truck sat where it shouldn't be. He usually worked until 5 on weekdays. Jennifer's sedan blocked the garage entrance. Something shifted in my chest. Not quite alarm. Recognition, maybe. The front door opened before I touched the handle. Jennifer stood there wearing her careful smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. She'd dressed up. Makeup, earrings, the whole performance. "Dad, perfect timing. Come in. We need to talk." The house felt staged. Too clean, too quiet. Coffee cups arranged on the dining room table like props in a play someone had rehearsed, without telling me my lines. Brian sat at the head of my table, my seat, with document stacks fanned before him like a poker hand. A woman I'd never seen stood in the living room doorway, briefcase clutched against her chest, her expression caught between professional and deeply uncomfortable. "Russell, this is Patricia Moore. She's a notary." Brian gestured to the empty chair across from him. "We've been working on something important. For your protection." I remained standing, counted the papers, estimated their purpose. "Protection from what?" Jennifer touched my elbow, gentle pressure guiding me toward the chair. "From complications, Dad. Legal complications if something happened and nobody could access your accounts." "Nothing's happened." "Not yet." Brian's smile didn't move right. The edges pulled too tight. "But you're 70. Things happen." Jennifer and I consulted an attorney. A power of attorney is the smart move. The notary shifted her weight. Her eyes found the floor. I sat, not because they'd convinced me, but because standing wouldn't change what was already in motion. The setup was too complete. They'd planned this while I talked about dovetail joints with men who'd known me 30 years. "Show me." Brian slid the document across the table. Jennifer poured coffee I didn't want into a cup I didn't need. The language was comprehensive. Full financial authority. All bank accounts, investment portfolios, pension deposits. My eyes caught on what wasn't there. No property transfer, no title changes. The house remained mine. I read slowly. Let them watch me read. Brian's wrist caught the light. New Rolex, maybe $5,000. More than his sporadic contractor work could fund. A Porsche Cayenne brochure sat on the coffee table, folded to show a circled price, $89,000. Jennifer's handbag hung on her chair, designer leather with that unmistakable logo. New. Expensive. "You understand what this authorizes?" The notary's voice was thin, required by law to ask. "Financial power of attorney." "And you're signing voluntarily?" I looked at Jennifer. She held my gaze, tears forming on cue. 2 years she'd lived here since her mother died. 2 years of home-cooked dinners and concerned questions about my health. The pattern crystallized, gradually controlling my mail, suggesting I skip the Builders Club when I seemed tired, monitoring my phone calls. This wasn't sudden greed. This was harvest time after a long cultivation. "Do I have a choice?" "Of course you do." Brian leaned forward. "But fighting this, refusing, that would damage relationships. Forever. Jennifer just wants to help." "We both do." The threat lived in the space between his words. "Sign or lose your daughter completely." I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I signed Russell Hawkins in the careful script my mother taught me 65 years ago. The notary stamped, witnessed, dated, done. Brian and Jennifer exchanged a glance. Just a second, but their masks dropped long enough for me to see the triumph underneath. The calculation, the victory. "We're going out to celebrate." Jennifer stood, already reaching for her coat. "Morton's downtown. You should rest, Dad. Big day." "Celebrating what, exactly?" "Getting your affairs in order." Brian laughed too loud. "Finally having everything protected." They dressed quickly, changed from the staged intervention costumes into dinner clothes. Their excitement leaked through the careful words. Jennifer checked her makeup in the hall mirror. Brian jangled his keys. "Don't wait up." Jennifer kissed my forehead. Mechanical affection. We might be late. I watched them leave. Brian's hand on Jennifer's waist. Proprietary. Their voices carried through the closed door. Laughter, relief, plans. The notary gathered her briefcase. Do you need anything, Mr. Hawkins? No. Thank you for coming. She hesitated. You seemed very clear about what you were signing. I was clear. She left. I sat alone at my dining room table. Document copies scattered like evidence at a crime scene. The celebration they were having, steakhouse, wine, probably that $89,000 Porsche conversation, should have been my warning. But I already knew. I moved to my study, opened my laptop, searched. Arizona power of attorney property rights. Then, revoking power of attorney Arizona. Then, elder financial abuse documentation. The anger would come later. Right now, I needed information. By 11 o'clock, I'd filled 6 pages with notes. The POA gave them financial access, but the house stayed mine. They could withdraw money, transfer funds, access accounts. But they couldn't sell my property, couldn't claim ownership, couldn't evict me from my own home. They'd won a battle, not the war. I pulled a fresh notebook from my desk drawer, wrote one line at the top of the first page. Power of attorney does not grant residential rights. Then I went to find boxes. The cardboard boxes lined my hallway like soldiers at attention. 6 of them labeled in black marker with the methodical precision I'd learned building houses for 40 years. I sat in my living room armchair, lights off, waiting. Their voices reached me before their keys hit the lock. Jennifer's laugh, high and bright. Brian saying something about finally being in control, loud enough to carry through walls and windows. 12:17 by the clock on the mantel. The front door swung open. Jennifer fumbled for the light switch. They froze. You're leaving tomorrow. I kept my voice level, hands folded in my lap. Noon deadline. Brian blinked at the boxes, then at me, wine-slow comprehension spreading across his face. What? Jennifer, clothes. Brian, clothes. Jennifer, personal items. I gestured to each box. I've packed everything. You'll need to collect the rest by noon. Jennifer's mouth opened, closed. Her makeup was smudged at the corners. Celebration remnants. Dad, what are you doing? Don't call me that. The words came out colder than I'd intended. You lost that right when you staged today's ambush. Brian laughed, disbelief mixed with wine. You're joking? Dad, come on. Read section 4, paragraph 2. What? I unfolded my copy of the power of attorney from the side table, pointed to the specific language I'd highlighted. The POA grants you financial authority. It doesn't grant property rights. This house is titled in my name. It remains in my name. You're tenants at will, and I'm terminating your tenancy. That's not how this works. Brian's voice rose, edges rough. That's exactly how it works. Consult your attorney if you disagree. He stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the wine and steak on his breath. You can't throw us out. We have the power of attorney. I didn't flinch, didn't stand. Let him loom while I stayed seated, immovable. Financial access isn't residential rights. Take the boxes. Be gone by noon. 2 years. Brian's control cracked completely. 2 years we lived here with you. Brian, stop. Jennifer grabbed his arm. No, he should know. He shook her off, turned back to me with rage, replacing the careful masks he'd worn for 24 months. You think we wanted this? In this house? Listening to your stories about construction projects nobody cares about? 2 years of pretending we gave a single damn about your health, your day, your boring life. The truth I'd suspected landed with clarity. Not pain. I'd moved past that during the 6 hours they'd spent celebrating. Just cold confirmation. I see. Those accounts, that pension, that's payment for putting up with you. Jennifer was crying now, but I couldn't tell if it was real or performed. Brian's drunk. He doesn't mean it. He means every word. So do you. That's not fair. I'm your daughter. I love you. You love my bank account. There's a difference. She tried the tactics that had worked for 38 years. Tears, trembling voice, the little girl plea that used to break through my defenses. After everything I've done, how can you say that? Everything you did was calculated. I see that now. Brian slumped against the wall, fight draining into exhausted anger. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern. It's midnight. You have 12 hours. Use them wisely. They stumbled to their bedroom, the guest room I'd given them when Jennifer claimed she couldn't bear living alone after her mother's death. I heard them arguing through the walls, blame shifting between them like a hot coal neither wanted to hold. I didn't sleep. Sat in my study reading Margaret Collins's contact information from the Builders Club directory. She specialized in elder law. Her office opened at 8. I called at 7:15, left a message requesting an urgent consultation. She called back at 7:45. Mr. Hawkins? Margaret Collins. Your message said urgent? I signed a power of attorney yesterday under pressure. My daughter and son-in-law. I need to revoke it. Brief pause. Professional assessment happening in the silence. Can you come in today? 2 o'clock? I'll be there. The locksmith arrived at 8:30. Jennifer and Brian were throwing clothes into suitcases, making frantic phone calls about hotels and rentals. The locksmith worked efficiently, front door, back door, garage. Didn't ask questions about the obvious family crisis. My neighbor Thomas Phillips watched from his driveway, coffee cup in hand. Our eyes met. I nodded once. He nodded back. Witness noted. By 10 o'clock, new locks gleamed on every entrance. I knocked on the guest room door. Your keys. They work until noon. Then they don't. Brian yanked the door open, snatched the keys from my hand. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. You're making a mistake, old man. The mistake was trusting you. They loaded their truck in bitter silence. Boxes, suitcases, the expensive items they'd accumulated while living rent-free. At 11:40, they were gone. The house felt larger, emptier, cleaner. I drove downtown to Margaret Collins's office, modern building, modest suite on the 3rd floor, diplomas on the wall, Arizona State law degree, elder law certifications, bar association memberships. She was 52, sharply dressed, with eyes that calculated while she listened. I told her everything. The ambush, the notary, Brian's drunken confession, the eviction. She took notes without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You signed this yesterday? Yes, under pressure. Did they threaten you? Not explicitly. The setup implied that refusing would be irrational. The notary was waiting. The documents were ready. The message was clear. Cooperate or be labeled incompetent. That may constitute duress. She pulled out a legal pad, started writing. In Arizona, we can file to revoke a POA, if signed under coercion or without full understanding. But first, have they accessed your accounts? I don't know. I tried checking online last night, but the bank website was down for maintenance. Her expression sharpened. Check now. Use your phone. I logged into my banking app. The screen loaded. Recent transactions appeared. My stomach went cold. 3 withdrawals. Yesterday afternoon, within 2 hours of the signing. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000, $25,000. Gone. Margaret photographed my phone screen. That's our evidence. They moved immediately. Now we move faster. She handed me a folder. Template documents for POA revocation. Arizona statutes on elder financial abuse. Her business card with her cell number handwritten on the back. File the revocation Monday morning. Document every interaction with them. Save texts, emails, voicemails. If they threaten you, record it. Arizona's a one-party consent state. Build the case brick by brick. How long does this take? Depends on whether they fight. But Mr. Hawkins? She met my eyes directly. They will fight back. Be prepared. I left her office carrying the manila folder like a shield. The battle lines were drawn. $25,000 stolen. But I still had the house. Still had my clarity. Still had my anger, frozen into something harder and more useful. I drove home slowly, planning my next moves with the same methodical precision I'd used designing foundations for houses that needed to stand for generations. This foundation would hold. And when I built on it, they'd learn what happened when you tried to steal from a man who'd spent his life making things that last. The bank website loaded at 8 Saturday morning. I'd been awake since 6, waiting for the maintenance window to end. Coffee steamed beside my laptop, Margaret's manila folder spread across the kitchen table like battle plans. I clicked on my savings account. The balance froze me mid-breath. 40 years of construction work, every careful deposit, every delayed vacation so I could save more. The account that should have shown $200,000 now read $115,000. $85,000 gone. I click transaction history. 3 withdrawals. 3 days. 35,000 Wednesday, the day after I signed. 30,000 Thursday. 20,000 Friday. My hands shook holding the mouse. The weekend customer service number connected me to a woman whose sympathy couldn't change reality. Sir, the withdrawals were legally authorized under the power of attorney documentation filed November 15th. I see you've submitted revocation paperwork, but can you reverse them? I cannot reverse completed transactions. I can freeze the accounts to prevent future withdrawals. Freeze everything. That will temporarily freeze your access as well until the revocation processes. Are you certain? The answer stuck in my throat. My own accounts, locked because my daughter had legal authority to steal from them. I'm certain. I called Margaret's cell. She answered on the second ring. Russell? They took $85,000. Silence stretched between us. Then, I'll meet you at my office, 11 o'clock. Margaret's weekend jeans and blazer combination looked wrong in her professional office, but her focus was sharp. We spread my printed bank statements across her conference table. They moved fast. She highlighted each withdrawal with yellow marker. 3 days. 85,000. Can we get it back? She set down the marker, met my eyes directly. Legally? Yes, we can pursue it. Practically? That depends on whether they still have it. What do you mean? Money is liquid, Russell. They could have spent it, transferred it to accounts we can't trace, hidden it. Even if we win a judgment ordering them to return it, collecting might be difficult. So they just get away with it? No. We fight. But you need to understand, this will take time, cost money, and have no guarantees. I drove home through streets decorated for holidays I wouldn't celebrate. Inside my empty house, I pulled a 3-ring binder from my office closet, bought sheet protectors at the drugstore, started organizing everything chronologically. Bank statements first, then Margaret's notes, the POA document, printed emails, every interaction documented, every theft highlighted, every lie preserved, control when everything felt chaotic. Tuesday brought legal papers. Brian's attorney claimed 2 years of caregiving services, 3,000 hours at $15 hourly, justifying $45,000 in compensation. Absurd mathematics covering naked theft. Margaret's response was surgical. She attached evidence I'd provided. Utility bills, property tax statements, grocery receipts. I'd paid every household expense while they lived here. $4,500 monthly for 24 months. $108,000 in free housing and living expenses. They hadn't cared for me. I'd subsidized them. Wednesday, my cousin Patricia called from California. Russell, honey, Jennifer sent an email. She's worried about you. I'm fine, Patricia. She says you're having memory problems, that you accused her of stealing when she was just helping with your finances. Did she mention the $85,000 she withdrew without asking? Silence. I'm not losing my memory. I'm losing my patience with thieves even when they're related. Other calls followed. Jennifer had distributed her narrative widely. Elderly father, declining mind, ungrateful paranoia. People who should have known me believed her version. Thursday evening, following Margaret's advice, I pulled my credit report. 6 hard inquiries the week after the POA signing. 3 mortgage lenders. 2 home equity companies. 1 reverse mortgage outfit. They'd tried to borrow against my house. My fully paid $850,000 house. The applications were rejected. The POA didn't authorize property encumbrance, but they'd tried. They wanted everything. Friday, an investigator from Adult Protective Services called. Professional, overworked, realistic. Mr. Hawkins, I'm opening an investigation based on your attorney's complaint. However, I need to be honest. These financial cases are complex and take time. We'll interview everyone, review documents. The process typically takes 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. We can refer to law enforcement if we find criminal activity, but we can't order them to return money. I'm sorry. Justice moved like concrete setting. Slow, inevitable, but painfully, frustratingly slow. That night I sat alone with my evidence binder, pages of highlighted theft, proof of calculated plunder. Brian's text from earlier glowed on my phone. You'll regret this. We'll take everything in court. I saved it. Screenshot, timestamp, added to documentation. But doubt crept through the gaps in my certainty. This was my daughter, the child I'd raised, sent to college, walked down the aisle. Maybe they did deserve something for living with me. Maybe I was being vindictive. Maybe... No. I stopped that spiral. Opened the binder to the bank statements. 35,000, 30,000, 20,000. Not caregiving expenses, not household contributions. Theft. They'd made their choice. Calculated, deliberate, complete. Now I'd make mine. The official bank statement arrived in Saturday's mail. Thick envelope. December's transactions printed in official format. I sat at my dining table with my laptop open, printer ready, Margaret on speakerphone. Read me the December 16th transaction. Wire transfer, $12,000 to Majestic Getaways Travel. The day after the POA was signed. Yes. What's the transaction description say? Cancun resort package. 2 travelers. Margaret's pause held weight. They bought a vacation to Mexico with your retirement savings the day after getting your power of attorney. We can work with this, Russell. I created a spreadsheet. Date, amount, merchant, category, each transaction itemized. $12,000 to luxury travel, $8,500 to Tiffany jewelry, $18,000 to Desert Luxury Auto Sales. None of it for my care. All personal indulgence. I called the travel agency, identified myself, explained the legal dispute. After verification, the agent confirmed. 2 first-class tickets, all-inclusive resort, Jennifer and Brian, departure December 20th. Could you email me written confirmation? The documentation arrived within an hour. I printed it, 3-hole punched it, added it to the binder. Tiffany provided a receipt showing Jennifer bought a diamond bracelet. The auto dealer confirmed Brian made a down payment on a 2024 Lexus. Each vendor supplied proof, transforming bank statement entries into concrete evidence of luxury spending funded by theft. Sunday afternoon, I walked next door. Thomas Phillips was raking leaves from his immaculate lawn, retired accountant precision in every movement. Thomas, you got a few minutes? Over coffee in his kitchen, I explained the situation. Facts, no dramatics. Thomas listened, nodded, set down his cup. I saw the whole thing that night. Your son-in-law was out of control. Would you be willing to put that in writing? For a formal statement? My attorney will draft something. It would help. Thomas met my eyes. Russell, you've been a good neighbor for 15 years. If your family is stealing from you, I'll say what I saw. Nobody should face that alone. Monday morning, I drove to a home security store. Purchased a Ring doorbell camera system with motion detection and cloud recording. Installed it myself. 40 years building houses meant I could certainly install a doorbell camera. Margaret had predicted, they'll come back. They won't be able to resist. When they do, you'll have video proof. Wednesday night, 11:47. My phone buzzed. Motion alert. I opened the app from bed. Brian's truck in my driveway. Brian approaching my door, trying the handle. Locked. He pounded with his fist. The camera captured his face clearly. Angry, possibly drunk. I know you're in there, Russell. You can't hide forever. That money is ours. I watched from my phone as he shouted, kicked the door, eventually left. 3 minutes of video automatically saved to cloud storage. Perfect evidence. Time-stamped. High definition. Self-incriminating. Thursday brought a process server with legal papers. Jennifer's attorney had filed a petition for emergency guardianship. I read it standing in my doorway, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Respondent has demonstrated significant cognitive decline, including paranoid ideation, impaired judgment, and inability to manage financial affairs. My daughter was trying to have me declared incompetent, not just stealing my money, stealing my independence, my dignity, my legal rights. Margaret's voice was tight when I called. It's a strategic move. If she can get guardianship, she controls everything. But Russell, she's made a mistake. This requires a psychiatric evaluation, and you're going to pass it. Dr. Eleanor Wright's office occupied the 3rd floor of a medical building downtown. She was 60, gray-haired, professionally neutral. The evaluation lasted 3 hours. Memory tests, recall lists of words, draw a clock, count backward from 100 by sevens, reasoning problems, questions about daily functioning. Mr. Hawkins, why are you here today? My daughter filed a petition claiming I'm mentally incompetent. I'm here to prove I'm not. Tell me about the situation with your daughter. She and her husband convinced me to sign a power of attorney, then withdrew $85,000 from my savings without my knowledge or permission. When I evicted them and moved to revoke the POA, she filed for guardianship claiming I'm confused. How does that make you feel? Betrayed, angry, sad, but not confused. I understand exactly what happened. I'd prepared thoroughly, brought documents showing my activities, Builders Club minutes, home repair invoices, correspondence, not just passing the evaluation, acing it. 3 days later, Margaret called with results. Russell, I have Dr. Wright's report. And complete vindication, no cognitive impairment, excellent mental status, appropriate judgment. She's recommending denial of the guardianship petition. My exhale felt like releasing pressure I hadn't known I was holding. So it's over? That part at least? That threat is over. But Russell, you understand what your daughter tried to do. She attempted to have you declared incompetent and stripped of your legal rights. I know. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about your independence, your dignity. I know, Margaret. Believe me, I know. That evening I sat alone with Dr. Wright's report on my coffee table. Official validation that I was competent, rational, appropriate. My daughter had called me incompetent, had tried to take everything, money, house, freedom, identity, and failed. But the victory felt hollow. The evidence binder had grown thick with proof of theft and betrayal. Each page documented another piece of the daughter I'd lost. I went to bed early, exhausted not from the battles won, but from the cost of winning them. 2 weeks before the hearing, I sat across from Margaret in her conference room. Evidence exhibits covered the table, bank statements, receipts, witness statements, the security camera footage on a thumb drive. My 3-ring binder anchored one corner like a foundation stone. The judge will ask why you signed if you felt pressured. Margaret tapped her pen against her legal pad. You need to answer clearly, without emotion. I signed because refusing seemed impossible in that moment. Better, but explain why it seemed impossible. I practiced the answer until the words felt smooth, until I could say them without my voice catching on the betrayal underneath. Early January. The Maricopa County Superior Court building rose concrete and glass against the morning sky. I parked 3 blocks away, walked slowly, arrived at courtroom 4B at 8:30. Margaret waited outside, reviewing notes. At 8:45, Jennifer and Brian arrived with their attorney, Douglas Mitchell. Brian wore a suit I'd never seen. Jennifer's eyes were red, prepared for performance. We sat on opposite sides of the hallway, didn't speak, didn't acknowledge each other. Judge Patricia Morrison called the case at 9 sharp. In the matter of Hawkins' power of attorney revocation. Margaret delivered her opening with surgical precision. Russell signed under duress. The POA was immediately exploited. Evidence would show predatory financial abuse. Douglas Mitchell countered, Russell was a controlling father fabricating claims to punish his daughter for seeking independence. The battle lines were drawn. I took the stand at 9:30. Hand on the Bible, standard procedure, swearing to tell the truth. Margaret guided me through November 15th, finding them waiting with the notary, feeling ambushed, seeing their luxury items. I signed because refusing would have destroyed my relationship with my daughter forever. They made it seem like the only rational choice. When did you realize it was a mistake? The moment I saw their faces after I signed. They looked triumphant. Not relieved, triumphant. Douglas Mitchell's cross-examination tried to shake me. Mr. Hawkins, isn't it possible you simply forgot giving your daughter permission? I didn't forget. I was never asked. You evicted your daughter over a misunderstanding, didn't you? I evicted her after discovering she'd stolen $85,000. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. His aggression made him look like a bully. I stayed calm, kept eye contact with the judge, not with Jennifer or Brian. Margaret presented the evidence methodically. A poster board timeline showed the withdrawals. November 15th, POA signed. November 16th, first withdrawal. November 17th, second. November 18th, third. She held up bank statements with yellow highlighting. This $12,000 charge, what was this for? A vacation to Cancun they bought the day after getting my power of attorney. The security camera footage played on the courtroom monitor. Brian pounding my door at midnight. His voice filled the quiet room. "Open up, old man. You can't hide forever." Jennifer stared straight ahead. Brian looked down at the table. The afternoon session brought the critical evidence. Margaret introduced the notary's contemporaneous notes, legally required documentation. She read aloud, "Signor appeared uncomfortable and hesitant during signing. Family members were present and actively encouraging signature. Circumstances felt pressured." Judge Morrison took notes, nodding. Jennifer took the stand at 2:45, confident she could sway the judge with tears. She cried, claimed she was trying to help her aging father, said the withdrawals were misunderstandings. Margaret's cross-examination was devastating. "Ms. Hawkins, you testified the $12,000 was for family expenses. Who traveled to Cancun?" "Brian and I did." "Not your father?" "No, but we needed a vacation paid for with your father's stolen money?" Margaret displayed a photo Jennifer had posted online. The Tiffany bracelet captioned, "Treating myself." "And this $8,000 bracelet? Whose emergency was that?" Jennifer's voice dropped to a whisper. "It was a gift for myself." "With your father's money? Without his knowledge or permission?" "I thought I had authority." "You had authority to manage his finances for his benefit, not to buy yourself jewelry. You knew that, didn't you?" No answer. Judge Morrison delivered her ruling at 3:30. She didn't need extended deliberation. The power of attorney is revoked effective immediately. The evidence demonstrates it was signed under psychological duress and immediately exploited for personal gain rather than the principal's benefit. She looked sternly at Jennifer and Brian. Furthermore, respondents are ordered to return $85,000 to Russell Hawkins within 60 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt proceedings and referral to the Maricopa County Attorney for criminal prosecution under Arizona's Elder Financial Abuse statutes. Outside the courthouse, Margaret tempered my relief. "They owe you $85,000. Actually, getting it is the next battle. They've already spent most of it. Be prepared for them to fight collection." I understood. Legal victory didn't guarantee financial recovery. But I'd won. The POA was revoked. Jennifer's guardianship petition was denied. The judge had called it what it was: exploitation. I drove home slowly, processing vindication mixed with exhaustion. 60 days. The countdown began. 2 weeks passed. 45 days remained on the 60-day deadline. I'd received no communication from Jennifer or Brian. No payment, no acknowledgement they'd even heard the judge's order. I called Margaret from my home office. "They're ignoring it." "Then we enforce. I'm filing for asset seizure this afternoon. They bought things with your money. We'll take those things back." Margaret's paralegal ran comprehensive searches. DMV records showed a 2024 Lexus ES 350 registered to Jennifer on December 18th, 3 weeks before the hearing. Purchase price, $47,000 from Desert Luxury Auto Sales. They'd known a judgment was coming. They'd tried to convert cash into an asset. Margaret filed the seizure motion immediately. Judge Morrison's order came back within 2 days. Vehicles seized to satisfy judgment. Sheriff authorized to execute. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy and tow truck arrived at Jennifer and Brian's apartment. Jennifer was at work. Brian was home. Within an hour, Brian drove to my house in his old pickup, parked in my driveway, started shouting from the sidewalk. "Russell, get out here. You took Jennifer's car. She needs that for work." I watched through the living room window, didn't respond. Thomas Phillips came out next door, watching. Mrs. Rodriguez across the street called the police. Brian's shouting continued. Incoherent rage about unfairness, vindictiveness, family betrayal. 2 Scottsdale officers arrived 15 minutes later. The senior officer, Martinez, was calm and clear. "Sir, there's a valid court order for that seizure. It's legal. Now I see you've been warned before about harassing Mr. Hawkins. You need to leave this property immediately." "Or what?" "Or I arrest you for criminal trespass and harassment. Leave now, or leave in handcuffs." And Brian left, tires squealing. Officer Martinez took my statement, documented the incident. The next afternoon, Jennifer came alone. First direct contact since the hearing. She rang the doorbell. stood on my porch, looked genuinely distressed. Makeup smeared, eyes red, clothes rumpled. I opened the door slightly. Chain still latched. Dad, please. Just 5 minutes. What do you want, Jennifer? Her prepared speech tumbled out. Brian manipulated her. She never wanted any of this. She's my daughter and deserves another chance. The car seizure destroyed them financially. Looking at her crying, I felt the parental instinct war with justified anger. She's my daughter. I raised her. Part of me wanted to believe her, to fix this. My hand moved toward the chain lock. Then memory flashed, her cold smile after the POA signing, the guardianship petition calling me incompetent. 85,000 gone in 3 days. The manipulation became obvious. These tears were tactics. I spoke firmly through the chained door. Jennifer, if you're truly sorry, prove it. You have 40 days to return the money. Bring me a check for $42,000. Show me through actions, not words. Then we'll discuss forgiveness. Her tears stopped instantly, like a faucet shut off. Her expression shifted. Pleading victim became angry adversary. 42,000? We don't have that. You know we don't. You're just being cruel. You had $85,000 2 months ago. My $85,000. You spent it. That's not my problem. I closed the door, watched through the window as she stood motionless, then stormed to her car and drove away fast. 3 days later, the Lexus sold at sheriff's auction for $43,000. After fees, $42,700 deposited into my account. Margaret sent an updated statement. Original theft, $85,000. Recovered, $42,700. Outstanding, $42,300. Remaining time, 37 days. Her note warned, they likely cannot pay the remainder. Prepare for contempt proceedings and possible criminal referral. Monitor for bankruptcy filing, which could discharge the judgment. I sat at my dining table with my accounting spreadsheet. 85,000 stolen, 43,000 recovered, 42,000 still owed. I'd won legally, recovered partially, but full restitution seemed unlikely. They had 37 days to produce $42,000 or face jail time. I doubted they had it. They'd spent everything: vacations, jewelry, cars, restaurants. The money was gone. Legal victory, partial recovery, incomplete justice. I updated my spreadsheet with precise numbers, color-coded cells showing recovered versus outstanding amounts. The construction business habit, tracking every detail, maintaining accurate records. But the numbers couldn't show what I'd really lost. Not just money, family, the daughter I'd raised, the relationship I'd thought we had. Those losses couldn't be recovered through court orders or asset seizures. I closed the laptop. 37 days remained. I'd wait and see if they'd pay voluntarily, though I already knew the answer. They wouldn't. They couldn't. The money was gone. 3 weeks after the Lexus seizure, I sat reviewing my accounting spreadsheet. 43,000 recovered, 42,000 still outstanding, when my phone rang. Margaret's voice carried an urgency I hadn't heard before. The APS investigation uncovered something. Can you come to my office this afternoon? You need to see these documents. I drove downtown wondering what new development could warrant that tone. The civil case was essentially over. In Margaret's conference room, Sarah Chen from Adult Protective Services spread printed emails across the table like crime scene photographs. Manila folders, dates highlighted, pages marked with colored tabs. Mr. Hawkins, we subpoenaed Brian Turner's email account. What we found transforms this from civil dispute to criminal conspiracy. She picked up the first email. September 12th, 2024, 2 days after they'd moved into my house. From Brian Turner to Marcus Webb. Subject line, consultation needed regarding family financial situation. My stomach went cold. Sarah Chen read excerpts while Margaret and I followed along on our copies. September 12th. I need advice on accessing my father-in-law's accounts. He's 70, has substantial savings, but won't discuss finances with us. Webb's response. First step is establishing trust and dependency. Move into his residence if possible. Makes you indispensable. September the 20th. We moved in last week. How do we progress? Webb. Gradual isolation from outside influences. Redirect his social contacts through you. Make him reliant on your judgment. Each email triggered memories I dismissed as coincidence. September 28th. Brian suggesting I skip Builders Club. You looked exhausted, Dad. Rest this week. I'd appreciated the concern. October 15th. Jennifer starting to help with my mail, sorting it before I saw it. Just reducing your stress, Dad. October 22nd. Brian answering my phone when Leonard called, taking a message that never reached me. I'd thought Leonard was avoiding me. Controlled isolation, I'd thought they cared. Sarah Chen reached November emails. Need to move forward with the power of attorney. Timeline? Webb responded, don't rush. Build pressure gradually. Make it seem inevitable, like the only reasonable choice. Have the notary ready. Don't give him time to think. November 10th. Everything set for the 15th. Notary scheduled. Documents prepared. He won't see it coming. Clinical planning. Calculated exploitation. I wasn't their father. I was their target. Margaret produced different emails. Jennifer to her friend Kimberly. October 18th. Brian and I are working on accessing Dad's accounts. He's sitting on almost $750,000 while we struggle. It's not fair. October 25th. Brian found someone who explained how to do this legally. Power of attorney. Once we have it, we can finally get what we deserve. The friend warned her, Are you sure? That sounds risky. Jennifer's response, Dad won't even notice. He's getting old anyway. Getting old anyway. Sarah Chen closed the folders, looked at me directly. Mr. Hawkins, Arizona law classifies planned financial exploitation of vulnerable adults as a Class 2 felony under ARS 46456. These emails demonstrate months of planning, consultation about exploitation tactics, deliberate psychological manipulation. This is criminal fraud. The Maricopa County attorney will file charges within 2 weeks. She added, Marcus Webb is already on our radar. He's coached at least 6 similar schemes across Arizona, teaching family members how to exploit elderly relatives through legal instruments. The Attorney General is building a RICO case against him. I sat silently, staring at the emails. My daughter's address at the top of messages discussing me like a business opportunity. Russell, are you okay? Margaret's voice was gentle. I knew they stole from me. I knew they manipulated me. But this, they planned it for months. Every conversation was calculated. I wasn't their father. I was their mark. My voice sounded flat, even to myself, but my hands shook. I left Margaret's office at 5, carrying copies of the emails. Traffic was heavy. 30 minutes home instead of 20. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes after parking, engine off, staring at nothing. Thomas saw me, waved. I waved back automatically. Inside, I dropped the email copies on the dining table next to my accounting spreadsheet, sat down, stared at Jennifer's words. Getting old anyway. Not just theft, not just manipulation, months of calculated targeting, discussed with consultants, executed with precision, every dinner conversation, every expression of concern, every offer to help, tactical moves in a scheme that started before they'd even unpacked their boxes. I filled 2 pages with notes, mapping the isolation tactics I now recognized. Missed phone messages, discouraged outings, intercepted mail, manufactured concern about my tiredness. Each one a manipulation I dismissed as carrying attention. The evidence was comprehensive. The betrayal was complete. And my daughter, my only child, had planned it all alongside her husband, viewing her elderly father as an obstacle to money she felt entitled to. Criminal charges were coming. Prison was possible. She was still my daughter, but she'd stopped being my family months before I'd realized it. 2 weeks later, Margaret called at 8:30 in the morning. The criminal charges were filed yesterday. Jennifer and Brian were both arraigned this morning on Class 2 felony elder financial abuse. And there's more. Douglas Mitchell withdrew as their attorney. Conflict of interest. They're blaming each other already. Within days, the fractures became visible. Brian's public defender approached the prosecutor with a deal. Brian would testify against Jennifer, claiming she'd masterminded everything, manipulated him through their marriage, pressured him into compliance. He provided text messages where Jennifer discussed the plan, demanded he get the money faster. Jennifer responded through Melissa Hargrove with secret recordings. She'd been documenting Brian since November, after the POA signing but before my eviction. The audio captured Brian planning and gloating. "We're going to squeeze every penny out of the old man. He won't know what hit him. 300 grand is sitting there. We just need to grab it." Neither deserved mercy at the other's expense. A week after the arraignment, Margaret arranged a meeting with Assistant County Attorney Laura Sandoval. Her office occupied the 4th floor of the county building, utilitarian furniture, case files stacked on every surface, conviction statistics framed on the wall. Laura was 42, sharp, experienced in financial crimes. She spread both sets of evidence across her desk, Brian's texts, Jennifer's recordings. "Mr. Hawkins, they're both guilty. The email evidence proves joint planning and execution. I'm not playing their blame game." She leaned back in her chair. "But I'm also practical. Trials are expensive and uncertain. I'm offering both the same plea bargain." Then she asked directly, "Do you want your daughter to go to prison?" I sat silently. Margaret didn't prompt me. This was my choice. I want justice. I want my money back. I want them held accountable. I paused, choosing words carefully. But if accountability can happen without prison, through probation, restitution, public record, I can accept that. She's still my daughter, even after everything. Laura nodded. Then I'll structure the plea around full restitution and supervised probation. No prison if they comply. Prison if they violate probation. 2 days later, I attended a pretrial hearing. Routine legal business about evidence admissibility, but Jennifer and Brian were both present. They sat on opposite sides of the courtroom with their attorneys. When Brian entered, he passed Jennifer's table. He muttered something. I didn't catch it, but Jennifer did. She stood abruptly. "You're the one who contacted Marcus Webb. This whole thing was your idea." Her attorney tried to quiet her. Brian's attorney stepped forward. The judge threatened both with contempt if they couldn't behave professionally. I watched this public breakdown with mixed feelings. Bitter satisfaction, maybe. They were getting a taste of betrayal from each other. After the hearing, Laura Sandoval presented identical plea offers to both attorneys. Plead guilty to Class 4 felony elder financial abuse, pay full restitution of $42,000 within 6 months, 3 years supervised probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory elder abuse prevention program, no contact with me. Refuse the offer and face trial, with potential 2 to 3 year prison sentences. 1 week to decide. Margaret mentioned casually later, "Did you know Jennifer filed for divorce last week?" I didn't. She showed me the public record. Jennifer Hawkins versus Brian Turner, citing irreconcilable differences and criminal conduct of respondent. Brian signed the acknowledgement within 24 hours. Their marriage lasted 2 years. How much was genuine? How much was criminal partnership? I had no answer. The deadline was Friday. Today was Monday. 4 days remained for them to choose. Accept accountability and avoid prison, or gamble on trial. I sat at home, television on but unwatched, checking my phone periodically for updates from Margaret. Brian's attorney requested a deadline extension. Denied. Jennifer's attorney asked for modified restitution schedule. Under consideration. The tension built as I waited to see if they'd choose responsibility or risk. They'd spent months planning to exploit me, discussing strategies with consultants, executing isolation tactics with precision. Now they were isolated from each other, desperate, broke, facing prison. The scheme was consuming itself from within. Justice, maybe, but bitter justice. My daughter was one of the people facing these consequences. That reality never stopped hurting, even when I knew the consequences were earned. 4 days until the deadline. I waited. Friday morning, 7:30. My phone rang while I sat at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold. "Russell, they accepted. Both of them signed the plea offer this morning." Margaret's voice carried relief. "The formal hearing is this afternoon at 2. It's done." Done. My daughter would stand in court and plead guilty to a felony. I drove to the courthouse at 1:30, parked in the public garage, took the elevator to the 4th floor. Courtroom 4B, the same room where the civil case was decided months ago. Jennifer and Brian stood before Judge Morrison at separate podiums, several feet apart, not looking at each other. Their attorneys flanked them like guards. Judge Morrison was formal, procedural. "You are charged with Class 4 felony financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Ms. Hawkins, how do you plead? Jennifer's voice barely carried. Guilty, Your Honor. I need to hear you clearly. Guilty, louder this time, defeated. Mr. Turner, same charge. How do you plead? Guilty, Your Honor. The judge accepted the pleas, reviewed the terms. 3 years supervised probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory elder abuse rehabilitation program. No contact with Russell Hawkins without written consent. I sat in the gallery, 3 rows back, hands folded. When the judge said guilty, my shoulders dropped. Tension I didn't know I was carrying released. Over the following week, Margaret kept me updated on their desperate scramble to raise $42,000, the amount still owed after the Lexus recovery. They sold everything. The Tiffany bracelet went back to the jeweler for $6,500. Electronics sold on Facebook Marketplace for $2,800. Furniture to a second-hand dealer for $4,200. The math didn't add up. They were selling at fractions of purchase prices, raising maybe $15,000 total. Brian's parents mortgaged their home in Tucson, $30,000 to keep their son out of prison. Margaret received the cashier's check the following week. Full restitution paid, she told me over the phone. $42,000 plus. The Lexus proceeds equals $85,000. You're financially whole, Russell. Financially whole. The words felt hollow. Within days, consequences cascaded. Jennifer's employer terminated her. Quarterly background check revealed the felony conviction. Her marketing coordinator position, $38,000 annually, gone. Brian's sporadic contractor work dried up completely. Nobody hires convicted financial criminals. Their apartment in North Scottsdale became unaffordable. They moved to a budget complex near 83rd Avenue, a rough neighborhood, 1-bedroom unit for $950 monthly. The social death followed. Friends stopped calling. Jennifer's social media went silent, then disappeared entirely. Accounts deleted. Invitations stopped. They became pariahs. Early March brought a probation compliance hearing. I attended, not required, but I wanted to see the process working. As I left the courtroom, Jennifer stood in the hallway with her attorney. She saw me, broke away from Melissa Hargrove's restraining hand, stepped toward me. I hope you're satisfied. Her voice echoed in the marble corridor. People stopped, watched. You've destroyed your only daughter. Was it worth your precious money? I waited until she finished, then spoke calmly, projecting just enough to be heard. Jennifer, I didn't destroy your life. You made choices. To plan theft, to manipulate me, to steal money you didn't earn. Every consequence you're experiencing is the direct result of those choices. I simply refused to be your victim. Her face crumpled, rage and pain mixing together. If you want to blame someone, look in a mirror. Melissa Hargrove pulled her away firmly. I turned toward the elevator, knowing those were the last words I'd ever speak to my daughter. That evening I sat at my dining table with my laptop, the same table where this began 4 months earlier with the POA ambush. My spreadsheet showed the final accounting. $85,000 stolen, $43,000 recovered through Lexus sale, $42,000 restitution payment, total recovered $85,000, 0 balance owed. The numbers balanced perfectly. But the cost column couldn't be quantified. A daughter lost, a family destroyed, a betrayal that could never be undone. I'd recovered every dollar. My house was mine alone. My accounts were secure. But sitting in the empty house that evening, I felt the weight of what victory had cost. Justice achieved, family destroyed. The spreadsheet showed financial recovery. But no spreadsheet could account for the losses that really mattered. I closed the laptop, sat in silence, processed the hollow feeling of complete victory. 2 weeks later, mid-March, I woke on a Saturday morning to genuine peace. Not the tense silence of recent months, but actual quiet. I made coffee, took it to my back patio, watched the sun rise over the desert mountains. No legal updates to check, no court dates pending, no crisis demanding attention. The battle was over. Thursday, I returned to the Builders Club meeting for the first time since September. 7 months absent. When I entered the restaurant's private room, Leonard waved me over. "Russell, where have you been?" "Family situation. It's resolved now." They understood the tone, didn't push. The conversation shifted to a commercial project debate. I contributed my opinion. Normal felt therapeutic. Leonard called later that week. Lunch? We met at the Mexican restaurant on Saturday. Over enchiladas, Leonard said, "I called you last October. Left a message with Brian. You never called back." Another manipulation revealed, even now. I never got that message. He was controlling communications. It's over. Leonard nodded. Good. I missed our conversations. We talked about everything else. Sports, his grandkids, normal life. The friendship resumed without dwelling on trauma. Tuesday afternoon, Thomas Phillips knocked on my door. We sat at my kitchen table with coffee. "I don't need details," Thomas said carefully, "but you handled a difficult situation with integrity. Thank you for the witness statement. That mattered." Thomas waved it off. "Neighbors help neighbors. You did the right thing even when it was hard. The right choice isn't always the easy one. No. But that's why integrity matters. Anyone can make easy choices." Wednesday morning, Margaret's email arrived. "Russell, thought you'd want to see this." The attached article from the Arizona Republic described an uptick in elder financial abuse prosecutions in Maricopa County. 3 new cases filed recently, all citing one case's successful outcome for encouraging other victims to report. One victim quoted, "I was ashamed to report it. He's family. But reading about that other case showed me family doesn't excuse theft. I filed charges." My case, my fight. Helping others find courage. I read it 3 times. My personal nightmare had meaning beyond myself. The suffering wasn't pointless. Thursday, I searched online for Grand Canyon lodges. Found a small place on the South Rim. Booked a cabin for a week in April. I called Leonard. "Remember you said you'd never been to the Grand Canyon? Want to go with me next month?" He laughed. "I'm 72. When else am I going to go?" "Yes." Planning felt like reclaiming life. Choosing joy despite loss. Friday evening, I stood on my patio watching the sunset. The mountains turned gold, then purple, then dark. I was alone. Jennifer was gone, barred from contact, full of hatred. My wife was dead. My house was empty except for me. But I was standing in my own home, financially secure, legally victorious, dignity intact. I thought about the alternative. If I'd done nothing, they'd have taken everything eventually. Drained my accounts, mortgaged my house, left me destitute. Fighting was brutal, but necessary. I chose justice over easy peace. As stars emerged in the Arizona sky, I remained on the patio, empty coffee cup in hand. I'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable, my only child deliberately exploiting me. The cost was immense. A daughter lost forever. Family destroyed. Trust shattered. But I kept my dignity, refused to be a victim, held them accountable, recovered everything material, and somehow my suffering helped others. 3 families protecting themselves because I showed it's possible to fight and win. The victory was hollow, but it was still victory. Justice was served, even if happiness wasn't restored. I turned and walked back into my house, my sanctuary, my peace, and closed the door. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.